Yes.
Okay. परम मित्र देव जी, जो वास्तव में देवता हैं प्रकृति से भी, heart, clean soul. He has personally benefited me with his yogic techniques, and I've been his student of yoga long time. Rajan ji, Jyoti ji, Jagmohan ji, all the other holy souls, sabko sadar namaste. So what I intend to do as per instructions of Devji, this is a topic so big, so broad, it being like a kid in a candy store. So I'll try to make it interesting and to see, here we go. All right. So topic is on health. But since the platform is of yoga, I will try to focus more on how this affects our life. Jigyasuji talked about two things, yagya and yoga. Yoga is for ourselves. So this is basically for ourselves. Yoga Darshan has 4 chapters. The Samadhi Pad, Sadhan Pad, Vibhuti Pad, and Kevalya Pad. And Yoga Darshan defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That means to control the faculties of mind. As you see, English has only one name for mind. In Sanskrit, we have man and chit. So your darshan sometimes uses it synonymously. This is where it comes from. Now, health is the topic. So I took a couple of definitions. Health can be defined as physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Since Vedas are the scriptures of all true knowledge, they can be called the books for health as well. Vedas do have a holistic approach towards life, as opposed to modern medicine, which focuses on specifics. Don't get me wrong, both are essential. And this comes from the Arya Samaj principles that Ishwar Sat, Satya, jo Padarth Vidya se jane jate hain, unka Adi Mool Parmeshwar hai, that one. The God is the efficient cause of all true knowledge and all that is known through knowledge. So that's just some definitions. Now, probably, and I have quoted this before in my talks, we have 2 books of Ayurveda, Shushrut Samhita and Charak Samhita. Shushrut was a surgeon way back then, and Charak was a physician. I think this is an amazing definition. Samadosha, Sam Agnishcha, Samadhatu Malakriya, Prasanna Atma Indriya Manah, Swasthya iti abhidhiyate. Amazing definition. Now, let us get a little bit into this one. Samadosha. So one is in perfect health, then there are 3 doshas. Here, doshas here is not a defect. Doshas means the personality types. Ayurvedic Vedya would say you have Vat personality, you have Pitta personality, you have Kapha personality. I'm not an expert in that particular, but there are certain elements to it. So Samadosha. So if somebody has these 3 things in balance, next is Sam Agnishcha, digestive fire, that is digestion, absorption, that is assimilation and metabolism. So digestive, endocrine, all of those things together. Samdhatu, all the body tissues and components, the entire physical body for that matter. Malikriya, lot of emphasis in Indian science in the Ayurveda on the bowel movement. If they don't have a good bowel movement, they won't eat food. That's old people. So excretory functions, both urination and defecation, when they are in perfect order, and to top it all, Prasanna Atma Indriya Manah, that's the most important part. Your physical body, pleasantly disposed and contented, mind, senses, and spirit. Everything is in unison. This is the perfect definition of health. Now, let's get a little bit into yoga because we are on that platform I said before. We hear in the Upanishads 5 kosh, that is Annamayi kosh. We have we have a Pranamayi kosh, Manmayi kosh, Vijnanmayi kosh, and Anandmayi kosh. The 5 kosh. They are not actually sheaths or physical places. They're basically how you get deeper. And if you go into the Ashtanga Yoga, the yam and niyam is really the discipline. It sets the stage of where you want to go further. That is Shoch, Santosh, Tap, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranidhan, and Satya, Ahimsa, Aste, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. So code of conduct, personal code of conduct, and the social code of conduct. Then physical exercises, increasing strength, flexibility, and reduced injury. If you are doing this regularly, if you fall, chances are you may not get hurt as much. So cardiovascular strengthening, conditioning, strengthening, and flexibility all can be achieved through the yogasana. That's what Devji is expert in. Next is pranayam and pratyahar. So first 5, yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, and pratyahar. These are considered bahya sadhan, or the external part of the yoga. So this gives you better oxygenation, relaxation, and now you are preparing yourself towards the meditation, which is dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So here in this topic today, in this talk, we talk about hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis, and autonomic control on all body systems, physically, mentally, and spiritually. This slows down age and stress-related deterioration of body and mind and helps prevent disease and helps healing. That's the whole concept of yoga. No. So in this talk, this is just a little introduction to what I'm going to say. What I'm going to cover is the respiratory benefits, the cardiovascular benefits, how it helps, if so, immunity, its basics, immunization, and where the yoga fits into that, and a little bit about COVID vaccination. These days, everybody is expert in COVID, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Only if there are any questions, I may answer. If there are others who know more, please say so. Stress and its mechanism, nervous system benefits of the yoga, endocrine and other general benefits, and a little bit on the Ayurvedic remedies as well. So this is the whole topic I'm going to cover. So a little statistics. It says about 36 million Americans practice yoga in the United States, probably 50 million by now. And between 2012 and 16, the number grew by 50%. Estimated 300 million yoga practitioners worldwide. And this industry is worth $80 billion, and Americans spend about 16 billion on yoga classes and equipment each year. So this is a lot. Now, to understand the benefits of yoga, it's important to understand why do we get sick. A little introduction. I had to put this piece, being a gastroenterologist. We have 10 trillion cells in our body and 100 trillion bacteria. The idea here is there is whole microbiota or microbiome inside, and all this primarily comes from the mother when the baby is born through the birth canal, and some changes can occur. And there is a suggestion that obesity can be more when people have a certain types of microbiota, and some modifications can be made in this environment by the practice of yoga. Research on various organ systems has proven that various levels of pains in body, hypertension, heart disease, various digestive and nervous system and mental disorders have their origin in coping with various levels of stress. People ask me, my patients ask me, Doc, can stress do that? Very difficult to define what is stress. Stress is not just one set. For somebody who can handle more, it's not stressful. Somebody who can't, stress is there. Stress is the coping of what the day-to-day problems are. So human body is a holistic entity and various body systems are interrelated. Again, holistic approach. So if you have a positive thinking achieved through the yoga is self-empowering, resulting in better sense of well-being, both physically and mentally. So but there's one word of caution. It has to be tailored according to your physical and mental possibility. Now, when we do the pranayam, for example, you have Kapal Bhati or Bhasrika. So a little bit of respiratory physiology here. You see in this graph on the right side something called tidal volume and normal breathing. You're breathing in normally, not deep in, not deep out. You're breathing normally, that is tidal volume. If you take a deep breath, that is inspiratory reserve volume on the top of the tidal volume. If you breathe out as much as you can, that is expiratory reserve volume on the top of the tidal volume and inspiratory reserve. If you, after breathing out completely, if you take a deep breath, that is vital capacity. Now, we are also doing a pranayam where you breathe out and then breathe out more and try to breathe out more. Viksha Shepi, that pranayam, that brings in what we call as the residual volume. And you can see these numbers. Normally, it's about half a liter. That is the tidal volume. By adding inspiratory and expiratory reserve volume, it can go up to 4.5 liters. And if you add some of that residual, it can be quite a bit. So it is clear and it's easy to understand that through the yoga, it will increase not only blood flow into various parts of body and hemoglobin levels, and since the oxygen is carried in the blood primary as oxyhemoglobin, some of it is dissolved in the plasma. This amount can be increased in pranayam. So not only through the increased circulation, but the amount of oxygen carried in the per amount of the blood. And respiratory functions by inspiratory and expiratory muscles power increases, so you have a better parameters as well. So overall benefit is better performance, work capacity, again, positive attitude and a better sense of well-being. Now, this is true. Some people ask, I have heart disease, I have asthma, I have high blood pressure, I have diabetes. Can I do yoga? Yes, this is true both for those who are otherwise healthy and those who are otherwise with illness of the things which I mentioned, but based on your capacity. So this is about the respiratory benefits and the mechanism. Now, lots of these articles. This is all summary of quite a bit of articles. A couple of articles I mentioned here. There was a study in Indian Journal of Physiology and Pharmacology in 1998, where after 4 weeks of pranayama practice, that is the deep breathing, there was a baseline heart rate and both systolic and diastolic blood pressure decreased. There was another study where they did the Bhasrika Pranayama. That means you take a 6-second, 4-second inhalation and the 6-second exhalation makes it 10 seconds. So in 1 minute, how many breathing? 6 times a minute. So this is done for 5 minutes, only 5 minutes. It decreased both systolic and diastolic blood pressure at certain level. This was done for 2 weeks. So there is a clear benefit here. So this is a little bit about the cardiovascular benefits. So far I've done the definition, the cardiovascular. Now the immunity. I described here that there are 3 types of immunity. Basic, what we are born, innate immunity. Now, in the middle is the adaptive immunity. That's what we are increasing when we are exposed to different germs. Like, for example, you had a hepatitis A, you are immune to it, the surface antibody is positive, you're not going to get it again. Flu shot, or now we have the COVID shot when we are immunized against, that is adaptive immunity. And the passive is serum antibodies or borrowed from another source, that is antibodies in the mother's breast milk, for example. So with the immunization, it's the adaptive immunity. Now, how does the immunity work? When the body senses foreign substances called antigen, the immune system goes to work. What happens? For example, if we get a shot of this vaccination in our arm, the B lymphocytes are triggered. There are killers, there's antigen presenting cells go to the site, they bring it to the B lymphocytes and they start making antibodies. So next time you have that antigen, the antibodies are basically holding, it's like a bunch of people, India in the street, you have a bunch of people holding a criminal until the police arrives, and that police is the T cells. So antibodies and complement system, they hold a person. That's how the immunity works. So where does yoga fit into that? A few of the research here. There is a suggestion that immune system of body becomes stronger, and here are some of the observation. Now, increased number of natural killer cells, that's the T cells and killer cells, have been found after 12 to 24 weeks of yoga practice. That's one thing. Yoga, this is one research. Yoga reduced markers of oxidative stress and levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines, C-reactive proteins, TNF-alpha, interleukin-6. These are the chemicals which by which their white cells talk to each other, and they are representative of inflammation. So these markers which show inflammation, that there is inflammation, they are reduced with the practice of yoga, according to this study. Also, in one study, they measured a certain chemical in the saliva. This chemical is called beta-defensin. This destroyed the lipid layer, covers the microbes or bacteria which attack saliva, has antibacterial properties. So this is secreted by cells, and that is increased with the practice of yoga. So this is about the immunity. Next, we hear a lot about the telomeres. What is this telomere business? As we age, and all the time the cells divide. Each time a cell divides, telomere, which are at the end of the chromosomes, they become shorter. And this is what leads to aging. Telomerase is an enzyme which restores, not completely, otherwise nobody would ever die, restores partially the lost nucleotide or the part of that end of the chromosome or telomere during this replication. And this enzyme has to be expressed. So the expression of telomerase is increased by yoga, so indirectly slowing down the aging process. So in brief, there is a suggestion that the aging process is slowed because the shortening of telomeres is less pronounced in people who are practicing yoga. Now, the nervous system. Humans have about 100 billion neurons and 3 to 100 different chemicals or neurotransmitters in the brain. About 10 of these chemicals do the 99% of the work. Now, I will mention some of these organs: amygdala, hippocampus. They are just small things inside the brain. You will have some pictures of it. So just kind of hang on to that concept. They govern our reaction or response to the environment, what's happening. Amygdala, for example, has to do with the emotions. It remembers there's something bad, smell, fear, that memory. Hippocampus, on the other hand, stores actual event memory. So through yoga, modifications can be made in this response to tone down the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system with shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic, and that results in change in the size of and function of amygdala and hippocampus. That's just one example, and I'll have a few more slides. Now, you are sitting in meditation, whatever you're doing, chanting of Om or breathing deep or whatever method you do, what happens? We get lost. If we have the same feeling when we are sleeping, aaj to neend bahut achhi aayi, we had nice sleep. So we have the body, we have mind, and then we have the soul. So disconnection of one from the other at what level is achieved? So science tells us that there are 4 parts of the brain which may have some significance in what we are talking about. The frontal lobe, which is in the front, parietal, which is the top, limbic system, which is in the middle of the brain deep inside, and a whole set of nerves called the reticular system. Now, don't mind, this is a busy slide, but only thing I want to point out here that there is this frontal lobe. You see, this is the frontal lobe. Okay. Top, this is the parietal lobe. Frontal lobe is the boss. When you are focusing, presenting something, controlling, that's the. This is called the attention association area. Parietal lobe is called the orientation association area. When you are in deep meditation, this becomes less active. This becomes more active. So next day, you could do better. And then you don't know where you are. That's what yoga does. Inside, in the middle of the brain, you have what we call as the limbic system, which will come in the next slide. So I already said that frontal lobe deals with the power, focus of attention, and it is the brain's top executive. It organizes response to complex problem, guides behavior with verbal skills, and houses networking memory. It controls the limbic system. If some message is going through the limbic system to the brain, there is this big thing. So frontal brain says, okay, calm down, don't act like that, relax. That's the frontal lobe. Parietal lobe, as I mentioned before, is the orientation association area. It receives and processes sensory information and deals with orientation in space and speed of objects. And there is a distinction between self and world. I'm sitting on this chair. I know I'm sitting here, I'm sitting comfortable, I'm in my room here. That's orientation. If I go into deep meditation, you lose that. That's the function of parietal lobe. Now, deep inside is the system which deals with memory and emotions. Again, a busy slide, but I just want you to focus on a couple of things. There's a little thing around the the um, the hypothalamus, above that, on the side of the midbrain, deep inside of the middle of the brain, called amygdala. That has to do with the emotions, as I mentioned before. And this is that yellow thing you are seeing, that is the hippocampus, that's the memory. And this is the mammillary body, which projects onto the thalamus, which gets the information to rest of the brain. This is how our brain works. So some function of these things. I don't think it's important to learn all this neurology, but I just want you to bring your attention to this hippocampus, long-term memory, and amygdala, which has emotional memory, and thalamus is just brings sensations to the brain. It's a two-way relay station. Now, hypothalamus, very important, maintains body's function such as blood pressure, weight, temperature, and appetite. So you can understand how, if we reprogram or tone down hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, we may come out ahead, and that's where yoga is supposed to help. Then there is another set of nerves we have in the Ayurveda and the yoga, you call it Ida and Pingala. Those are the sympathetic plexuses on both sides of the spine. And then there is a set of reticular or these fine nerves which projects on to this mammillary body and amygdala and to the thalamus. So that is called the reticular system, or part of the autonomic nervous system. So having given this description, I'm going to say, what is stress? Am I going too fast or okay? Okay. Now, what is stress? I mentioned before that stress results from inability to deal effectively with situations, not a level. There is no particular measure of stress. It's how a person can handle. And practice of yoga trains you to handle it better. So stress and anxiety disorders arise from a dysfunction in the modulation of brain circuits which regulate emotional response to potentially threatening stimuli, which involve bottom up activity from amygdala. So here is your reticular system going through the spinal cord into the brain stem and going to this area called amygdala. Something is happening. There, person has seen that. You see a lion or a bad smell or whatever bad amygdala. So, having recognized the prefrontal cortex reduces the stress by inhibiting amygdala. So, okay, calm down. It's okay. It's okay. Or react in a certain way. So this mechanism of controlling these limbic system becomes defective in people with stress. And this is where yoga is supposed to help. I'm showing all of this that you understand the mechanism, why everybody said, okay, with the yoga, this happens, that happens. But this is about why it happens and how it happens on the top of what happens. So here we have, this is the same amygdala, and here is the hypothalamus pituitary. And then when you have the reaction or some sort of a sensations going, let's say there is a danger of some nature, you're not ready and relaxed to eat or relax to whatever you want doing. You want to run away from it. You want more adrenaline. You want more glucose. You want the blood going to your muscles rather than your digestive system. So for that purpose, body has this, what we call as the adrenal gland sitting on the top of the kidney. The superficial or the top part is called cortex, which makes the steroids, and inside makes the medulla. So this is hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. That's what gets activated in all times of stress. What does it do? Why is it necessary? It is fight and flight. Increase in the cardiovascular tone, increase in the blood pressure, mobilization of energy, a transient enhancement of immunity, and inhibition, for example, of digestion, growth, reproduction, those type of things. So this is what gets toned down. What yoga does is more parasympathetic activity, decrease of sympathetic activity, and toning down of hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. That's the goal. And that results in many other benefits. So, little bit more about the stress. So, what happens in stress? There is a repeated firing of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which leads to increased production of catecholamines, such as epinephrine, which is a chemical from the adrenal cortex, and adrenal medulla rather, and cortisol like glucocorticoids from the adrenal cortex. And there is a less insulin because you want more glucose to do the job of whatever you want to run away from a place. Your muscles, heart need sugar, so you want that. So metabolism of fat, protein, carbohydrate, everything is altered in this period of stress. So that results in increased sodium and water retention. You may need more fluids because you're running, you get dehydrated. You don't want to get dehydrated. You don't want to have too much urine. So all that leads to high blood pressure. Now, in a period of stress, when you're really in trouble, these are necessary. But if something like this happens, somebody just pacing like that, somebody who is just sitting at home, pacing, stress, that's not good. That's hurting. That's bombarding your body with bad things. So stress can also lead to increase of blood cholesterol level, and free fatty acid in the serum, which get deposited into arterial wall. Net result is worsening of disease such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. So this is very important. So chronic stress can also lead to asthma attack. So stress, now brain, what happens to the brain in a stress? The density of some parts of the brain decrease, amygdala, which has to do with the fear, increase, and yoga was found to decrease that amygdala, and Alzheimer's can progress more. So you can see there is a mechanism. I don't think it's necessary to understand that mechanism too much in depth, but the idea is that the whatever mechanism is causing Alzheimer's, the progression of that becomes faster in period of stress. On the other side, on the flip side, with the practice of yoga, you are intending to reduce that change. So what does yoga does? This is a busy slide, but very informative. So kindly allow me to, so the primary effect of meditation on autonomic system is increased parasympathetic activity. I have stressed that before. Now, there is an increased secretion of chemicals. 5 are most important. These are dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphin, and gamma aminobutyric acid. When I'm doing an endoscopy, when the anesthesiologist is giving that white liquid propofol, that basically stimulates the GABA. What is GABA? GABA is a neurotransmitter, and its job is to prevent your brain from getting overly excited. It's a negative chemical. So that yoga increases GABA level by 27%. This is just one study. Also, as Devji would put it, there are happy hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. Endorphin is like a morphine secreted within our body that help relieve anxiety, reduces tension, and it's useful in the states of depression and anxiety as well. Yoga also inhibits the areas of brain responsible for fear, aggressiveness, and rage, and brings more bliss and pleasure. Net result is plasma cortisol, the steroids in the body are decreased. There is a decreased blood pressure, as I mentioned before, also blood glucose, cholesterol, and improved thyroid hormone status. One of the main effects, but I think not just that, all these chemical thing, but what really a person achieves by practice of yoga is that it inculcates a more disciplined lifestyle, such as a better diet, better sleeping and waking up routine, avoidance of any addicting substances. I tell my patient, I say, who is the boss? Are you the boss, or this cigarette is the boss, or your Coca-Cola is the boss, or your part you are smoking is the boss? Who is in charge here? So a small percentage of people, it kicks in. Mostly it doesn't do anything, but it does sometimes. So avoidance of addictive substances, positive thoughts, and increase confidence to deal with the daily situation and better overall lifestyle. I think this is the most important thing which is achieved through the practice of yoga. So there is a better self-esteem, less dependent on drugs commonly prescribed in the states of anxiety and depression, which do have side effects. Antidepressant cause constipation and some of the other side effects. So there is but yoga practice, it takes time, effort, perseverance, consistency, but it doesn't have any side effects. Couple of slides how practice of yoga, you see on the left side on the baseline, there is a less activity. Practice of yoga, the frontal lobe. Remember I mentioned the frontal lobe? There's more activity in the frontal lobe. Similarly, in the parietal lobe, which has to do with the orientation, that's get less with the practice of yoga. Now, brain size. Meditators showed significantly larger volume of the regions. There was a study where there was a putamen. Putamen is part of the deep inside the brain. There's a substantiation, which deals with our movements, controlling the movement. So that decreases all these things. Gray matter goes down as you go older. So that decrease in the size of these reduced. That means the deterioration occurred less on different parts of the brain, which have to do with our functioning and control of ourselves. Now, beta waves. What happens to certain waves? When you are doing meditation, it's like a deep sleep. That's when you want to achieve this theta waves. That means slow, relaxed waves. So they have actually seen in the long-term meditators, Buddhist monks in the University of Philadelphia, that they had more theta waves. So, um, so I think this may be the last slide in terms of the yoga before I have a few minutes on Ayurveda. So what overall we have learned today, that what is the definition of yoga, the immunity, what it does to our cardiovascular functions, the structure and function of the brain, the chemical changes, and all that. So to summarize that, less chance of sleep apnea. So many people with sleep apnea using that machine. But if you practice yoga and really consistency, chances are you may not need that CPAP machine. Anxiety and depression, clearly beneficial. Reduced chance of homicide, suicide, and other crimes through understanding of truth about life, yeah, about the life. So that's very important, and that is avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, panch, klesha. If you have the right knowledge, jo vastu jaisi hai usko agar aap jaan gaye, so then chances are you will be dependent less on these things. Neuromuscular and nervous system disorder, arthritic conditions, cardiovascular, digestive function, allergic function, endocrine, various, even malignancy. Lot of what happens in the body has to do with inflammation, cardiovascular disease, even people who have fat in the liver, there is a certain element of inflammation, so many things. So if you reduce that inflammatory response, as I mentioned before, through the practice of yoga, chances are that you will tone down and reduce some of these conditions. So this is where, so summary in terms of good habits. Practice of yoga is a good habit. Wake up early, sleep early, eat light, eat right. The last meal be at least 3 hours before going to sleep, because gastric emptying time, T half is 90 minutes. So you don't want to sleep on a full stomach and sleep on the left side, because your gastric cavity or the stomach is more on the left side. Drink a lot of water and avoid processed food, artificial drink, chocolates, coffee, soda, etc. So this is about the basics of the how you can have achieved that samadosha samvani sandhatu malakriya, that state. Now some a little bit word about, again, I'm not an Ayurvedic physician, but this is all through the some knowledge, some internet, some of that, that there are things mentioned which we hear right from childhood. Sito Phaladi, Talisadi, Tulsi. Tulsi is supposed to be very good, to the point that it's an honor for at least us, for a Hindu, to have a Tulsi plant in their home. It has beneficial. It should not be chewed, but it could be used. The Tulsi Ganvati that is available in the United States. You can't get a plant, but you can have a Ganvati, means the condensed form of the powdered form. Ashwagandha or asgandh, Indian ginseng. Uh, that is mainly the root powder is used. It may reduce the blood sugar, and it may reduce cortisol and help anxiety. And it may try to take it if you're taking ashwagandha more at night, because it may make you tired. Chavanprash has mostly amla, and it has so many other things. It's a general nutritional supplement. Um, Giloy, I think that this thing is hiding in that screen, but it's about Giloy. You see how long list of things what Giloy can do. And what I've heard Baba Ramdev is saying one time, that they have researched thousands of different herbs in their labs, and they found Giloy to be the most useful. It's the stem, and it easily grows. It's a creeper, grows everywhere in India. but only mainly the stem of it is used. And here what we have is in the form of, again, the powder of that, and into form of the Ganvati, not powder, in the pills. So it can reduce aging, reduce arthritis. Again, all these are observational claim. I don't think there has been a clear double-blind control study to prove the point. But in terms of the praman, pratyaksh praman, anuman praman, this is shabd praman from the books or the authority. So it comes in that category of shabd praman, that it does have a great deal of benefit, giloy, and whether it will prevent corona, whether it will help get you better faster, chances are it will help in some way or the other. So that's giloy. Then there is medications like the coronal and Shwashwari if somebody has respiratory disorders. Patanjali have Shwashwari Ras powder. I think the coronal what they have has the Shwashwari Ras, plus it has the giloy and couple of other things. So again, these are nutritional supplements, not necessarily tested beyond doubt, but these do have positive. And again, for the giloy, it doesn't have downside. It's not poisonous. It doesn't have any side effects to the best of the understanding. So this is where I would stop, and I would stop sharing. And again, back to for any questions or comments, or we have Devji or anybody expert, Dr. Dang, the psychiatrist, my older brother, if he wants to talk about that, or anybody else, please go ahead.
Dr. Gupta, this is Neeru. Before anybody goes ahead and asks their question or something, I would like to thank you so much. First of all, I am blown away the subject matter expertise, your holistic knowledge, and your way of delivery. It's like amazing. Would love to have you on a regular basis. I have to go through this recording many times. It is just an amazing job. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I agree with you, Neeru. He is so, the lecture was so understood nicely. I think Ramesh, you got it.
Yep. Amazing, amazing. How he actually, I was thinking being a medical doctor and then connecting it with Yoga Darshan and Sankhya Darshan and then yoga and everything is spirituality. Oh my God. I'm just blown away.
Amazing.
That's all I can say there.
Well, it's a privilege to be a student of Dayanand.
But Rameshji, if we want to listen this again, how can we listen it? This recording of yours.
देव जी की देवता की कृपा हो जाए तब हो जाए.
Yes, क्योंकि अभी इतना सारा एक ही बार में absorb करना, even I'm a science student, but still to absorb so much.
So I'm going to.
I want to listen it again.
Yes, I'm going to post it on YouTube.
Oh, so good.
There is a called Dev Yoga channel, and you will find.
Dev Yoga channel bhi hoga.
Yeah,
Okay.
Under Rameshji's name, Rameshji's lecture.
I have one question. What is the basic difference between Tulsi and basil? Because basil, we get it here all the time. So Tulsi is similar to basil or not?
It's not the same.
From what I know, that when some of these invaders went to India, they brought with them whatever they could grab. And there is some differences, but I think they could be similar but not same.
It's not.
जैसे अपना जो वो होती है ना अजवाइन के बीज होता है ना अजवाइन.
Right.
And then we have oregano we put in. Oregano is the leaves. Ajwain is the seed. चीज एक ही है वो.
But it belongs to the same family kind of, because basil you can get here a lot, not so much pure tulsi.
तुलसी की घनवटी आती है रामदेव जी की तुलसी घनवटी आती है.
हाँ वो तो घनवटी तो मिलती है. The plant.
Plant, but I don't think.
I used to have, but no, I don't. That was very nice, very informative. I'm so thankful to you. Very, very
Tulsi is very easily available in everywhere, right?
I know. You know what? I tried, so many times, but somehow it doesn't stay in my home. Something is wrong.
No, no,
लेकिन
it
उसको
After a
उसको
year or
चबाना
so,
चबाना मत. It is very acid. The pH of tulsi is low, so don't your enamel. You will destroy the enamel on the teeth. So don't chew it. तुलसी को
don't chew it.
चबाना नहीं उसकी. It has a low pH.
Oh,
Acidic
okay.
होती हो.
you can always put in tea or just in
हाँ हाँ
herbal
हाँ
tea or
हाँ
something
you.
of that sort.
But we get like tulsi chai. That's the same thing. Dry tulsi chai.
I am not sure about
Vedic
that.
tulsi.
Anybody
But
who has
but
knowledge.
we will, if you come to Arya Samaj, we'll send it with Dev Bhaiya. We get lot of tulsi in summer. So Dev Bhaiya will send some tulsi for Asha ji.
Ah, okay. I will get.
All right, I will
अरे
carry it.
सब now तो अभी तो सब वर्चुअल है ना अभी थोड़ी आएगी.
जब भी
आप
आएंगे तब.
तो बीज भेज सकते हैं. तुलसी seeds we can send you. We have lot of tulsi seeds
No,
here.
thank you very much. Thank you. I'll try to get it. Thank you.
Dr.
And
Ramesh, I have one quick question.
मेरे को
What is your take on this vaccine, COVID vaccine, and um, anything that you can share with us, because we are all going to have at some point. So, what's your
Okay,
take on
that
that?
is the question. What type of vaccine, or whether you should take it or not? What's the question?
Both, actually.
Okay. See, there are different types of vaccine, but what we have in United States is the messenger RNA vaccine. Messenger RNA doesn't go into the nucleus, so it doesn't get incorporated into the DNA. It doesn't multiply. There is no way you can get a COVID from the vaccine, number one. Side effects, a little allergy here and there, rare, but generally it is very safe. It's a messenger RNA. So when it goes into your arm, as I mentioned before, then you have the antigen presenting cells going to it, and that goes into body and causes immunity. Again, it's everybody is an expert on it's minus 70 degree, 3 weeks apart, 2 injections, 94.5% safe, same Moderna, needs to be stored at not as low temperature as the Pfizer vaccine, 4 weeks apart, equally 94% benefit. Whether you should take it or not, I take it as a privilege. धियो यौन है प्रचोदयात. You see, जो मनुष्य को जो ज्ञान दिया है परमात्मा ने, ईश्वर जीव प्रकृति. So science is the knowledge of the nature, and this is a miracle of science, a result that in 11 months, a lot of people are questioning if it has been prepared so fast, there must be something wrong with it. So there is no treatment for shock, or there is no treatment for fear. There's a treatment for realism. These days, FDA, the CDC, they are on it. They don't let things come out unless it's safe. Lot of, there's so much money, so much politics is at stake if they put something in the market without being safe. We have to have faith, and it's a privilege to take it. I think all of us must take it. If not for us, we do to do it for society. As a civic, as a member of the society, if we protect ourselves, swastiche priya atmanam, so if we protect ourselves, then we can protect the society. एरोप्लेन में जब एरोप्लेन हिलता है तो सबसे पहले मास्क किसके लगती है? You have to put on yourself, then put it on your child. So you have to take care of yourself to be responsible of the society. If you get it, and you don't have any choice, whether Moderna or Pfizer, whatever they give you, that's the choice. You can't say anything.
Ramesh,
Ramesh ji,
brilliantly
first,
said.
Bhavi?
Brilliantly said. बहुत आपने अच्छा explain किया.
Oh, thank you.
COVID vaccine का. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Or anybody knows more. I mean, like I said, Dr. Kapila Nakai, you can train a monkey to talk about COVID vaccine.
yeah.
That's
So,
his
Ramesh,
word. I'm quoting it as such.
So Ramesh ji, I got the first dose. Now they say after the second dose you get this, that.
Again, there is no treatment for fear.
Okay. I'm prepared, but people say, oh, you should be sick for 2 days.
Okay, people, hai na, Dr. Google is the biggest, worst doctor in the world. And then in next door neighbor, you're living in the house, your grandfather or somebody, grandfather died in this house, so I don't want to live. People say, I'm not going to go to St. Joseph Hospital
आपने दोनों
because I
डोज
had
ले
a,
लिया? आपने
huh?
दोनों ले लिया, 2 डोज ले लिया, आपका तो हो गया ना?
Of course.
Okay. So you
On day
didn't feel
one,
any.
first day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
First day, I mean, it's very voluntary, but my
नहीं
suggestion,
नहीं, सेकंड तो अब लेना पड़ेगा ना,
पड़ेगा नहीं, पढ़ना चाहिए.
Yeah, I know.
Not that it's a,
No, I'm looking forward for the second one because I haven't seen my grandchildren, my daughter, for almost a year now.
yeah, but just because you have vaccination doesn't mean you're going to let your guards go. You still should wear a mask and take the due precautions.
Yeah, I will.
I mean, chances are you won't get as sick, you won't transmit as much, but there's no guarantee that you won't affect. That's what they are saying.
मालूम है ना, मोहन भाई की फैमिली को सबको हो गया वायरस, right? मोहन भाई is sick with this thing. You know that, right?
डॉक्टर गुप्ता नमस्ते, मैं कविता अग्रवाल हूँ. एक्चुअली आपका लेक्चर, it was thoroughly interesting and amazing to hear the combination of modern medicine, yoga and Ayurveda, everything together. And I really enjoyed the HPTA axis, the way you explained, and mind-body coordination with the soul. Just being an Ayurveda person, I am doing my master's in Ayurveda right now.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so
great.
just really was enjoying the first shloka itself when you were actually chanting prasanna manda indriyatme atma. I don't remember that fully, but
Samadoshe samagni samadhatu malikiya prasanna atme indriya mana swasti iti abhidhiyate.
Yes. तो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है आपसे कि आप गैस्ट्रोएंटरोलॉजिस्ट हैं, तो आप थोड़ा सा गट एंड ब्रेन कनेक्शन को भी प्लीज समझाइए, क्योंकि इतना ज्यादा चर्चा चल रही है. हमारे पास हमारा एक मॉड्यूल सिर्फ गट ब्रेन कनेक्शन पे था, that how the gut is getting affected from your, because आपने इतना स्ट्रेस की बात करी.
What is the gut mind relationship? Okay, what happens is in our intestine we have three things. We have the environment of the intestine, which is our microbiome or microbiota, which have fungi, which have bacteria, which has viruses, and we have different varieties of bacteria. I said 100 trillion bacteria. That's one environment. Then we have the mucosal lining, which is a single layer with the cilia on it. So there is a single layer lining. And then in the lamina propria, just in the mucosa, we have the defense cells, the lymphocytes, the monocytes, all that. So these three things, the environment, the lining, and this thing, they have to act. And sometimes there is a dyssynergy. And then within submucosa, we have the submucosal plexus of nerves. And then in the muscles, we have a mesenteric plexus, or the nerves intermuscular plexuses. So the sensations go through the sympathetic system to the brain, and then we react again through the same system. So if there is a dysfunction, this something called visceral hypersensitivity. That means for the same amount of volume of the air, they did the rectal balloon study where it give a pressure or the hand pressure in the cold. So the peripheral sensitivity or somatic was the same, but the visceral sensitivity was different. There was an increased firing of those nerves in people who have irritable bowel syndrome, irritable IBS-D or IBS-C, irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, diarrhea, or mixed. So that, and then people who have had a bad experience in the life, some sort of something happened to them as a child. And then there is something called the post-infectious diarrhea. People who have had some sort of infection, go, I had this diarrhea 5 years ago, jab se mere aantein kamzor ho gayi hai. People, you make this expression. My father used to say, jab se aantein kamzor. That is nothing but the post-infectious IBS. So this is the gut-mind relationship, visceral hypersensitivity, altered expression or perception. The brain is on the receiving side of perception, And then there is the peripheral, and there is a bidirectional activity between the through the reticular system, through the amygdala, through the hippocampus, through the mammillary body, to the thalamus, to the parietal, and all these together in the same system. So with the IBS, what we try to do is to reduce the, for example, if we give a drug for IBS, then what we reduce on the basolateral side, that goes into and then reduces that firing of those impulses. That's the how it works. Besides making a difference, for example, I don't want to explain the pharmacology. That becomes a medical lecture. So did I answer your question?
Actually, we hear a lot about the vagus nerve also. The vagus
What?
nerve, which goes.
Vagus nerve is just a small piece of the puzzle. That's just the vagus is a vagabond that starts all the way from the medulla and then goes all the way and has the parasympathetic supply to the whole GI system up to the mid-transverse colon. But that is not all. That is just a very crude thing. Main thing is in the visceral hypersensitivity at the mucosal level. That's where it is. Vagus has nothing to do with it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
That's where the SSRI we have sometimes give. Of course, Dr. Dang is here. So SSRI, 95% of serotonin in the GI tract. The GI tract is called the small brain. So that's why many times Cymbalta is one, for example, which SSRI, SNRI. So we reduces that firing at the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, reduce the transmission of those. So that also helps in people with IBS.
Wow, excellent.
Very good.
Very, very good, Dr. Saab. We all are really happy, and we will actually continue for now every other month, and we will bring Dr. Ramesh Gupta again because his knowledge within 1 hour, we cannot even get whatever he told 50% of it. So I will have this lecture posted on Dev Yoga on YouTube, Dev Yoga channel. So you can, or you should watch it again. You should hear it again so you can grasp more than what you were able to get now. So I thank you really very much. And now our project manager, Mr. Jag, you will have some words and then we will conclude the session for today.
We wanted to hear a little bit from Kavitaji about the Ayurvedic medications, any in the comments in a couple of minutes.
So,
Yes.
So Dr. Gupta, you were talking about Giloy, right? Giloy, Amrita. So Giloy, actually, I have grown at home. If you have seen this back of this room, this is a size. One plant is Giloy back here, and it is the best anti-inflammatory medication, which I am actually using every week. We make a kahada with Giloy and ashwagandha. Actually, the herbs we were explaining, every single herb is the one which is too good, and I can talk more with people about all these herbs. But yes, Giloy is called the boon to the human being from God. And ये कभी सड़ती नहीं है, कहीं भी फेंक दीजिए सड़ती नहीं है, कभी इसमें स्मेल नहीं आती है, इसको काट के अगर रखे, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा पावरफुल है इसका सत. अगर गिलोय ताजी को काट के और मोटार में कूट के और उसका सत बनाया जाए तो वो ऐसा निकलता है व्हाइट. दैट इज कॉल्ड गिलोय सत, व्हिच इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल एंटी-इन्फ्लेमेटरी which everyone can use. Actually मेरे सिस्टर के बेटे को कोविड हो गया था यहाँ न्यू जर्सी में ही, तो every morning night I was on call with him. We cured him completely with all Ayurvedic. We never took any medication, modern medication. Yeah. So and आपने सीतोपलादी के बारे में बताया. सीतोपलादी, I am sure many people know, it is one of the best classical formula from charak for cold. And Tali Sadi Patra जो उन्होंने अपने उसमें दिया हुआ था, that is more for bronchitis and asthma kind of a condition. Tali Sadi is the next level, which is not prescribed during general cold conditions, but Tali Sadi is also excellent herb. Ashwagandha induce sleep. So anybody is having sleeping disorders, ashwagandha is good. But again, since we go via Prakriti, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, ashwagandha, since it induces little bit of pitta, so we have to analyze the Prakriti. And I can give one full session on Ayurveda general. How do we go Prakriti? How do we go Vikriti? And how do we analyze it? Even I do pulse diagnosis also. So through pulse, I can tell the general issues at that time which are going on or any chronic conditions. Yeah, so that is what they are teaching us. I'm still studying. Yeah. So
Kavita, it's a very lovely information that you're giving, but how can we reach you?
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to keep talking to you. My husband just had a little nerve problem, and I would love to talk to you.
sure, anytime.
Maybe Devji can help me, whatever. Or you should come and talk again.
Yeah, I think we should have one session for her. We will plan something like that. Yeah.
So when will be the next session? When will be the next lecture?
Every month, first Sunday is the plan.
Okay,
every month. Yes, every alternate month is the plan currently, but if we get the doctor's availability, we will go with every month.
No, I think you should do every month. Every 2 months is
definitely. We will work towards that. And we really appreciate.
Lives in New Jersey. You live in New Jersey?
Yes, he's in Hillsborough.
Yes.
So you are growing this giloy at home?
Yes.
How did you?
Yes, see this. I will show you the plant 1 minute. If you can.
Up Hillsborough.